It being 7 o'clock on October 1st, 2015, I call the meeting of the Board of Health to order. Any warrants to sign, Glenn?
Yep, 3 expense.
Brought a pen tonight. Whole bunch of warrants.
Bert, can you just put the recorder over by Lucy? Thanks.
Someplace.
Thank you.
Was this for the flu clinic?
No.
Oh.
That's for infectious disease, communicable disease investigations. Flu
Our
clinic.
next order of business is the minutes of September 17th. I have no problem with the
I have no comments.
last
I
version.
just wanted to
got.
add one thing. Under 98 Cape Drive for the septic tank that was too deep on the motion, I just wanted to add the age of the septic tank and the necessity to have the 1,500-gallon H20 loading tank to replace the old 1,000-gallon H10.
Where are you, Glenn? You know?
I am on the first appointment, 4th paragraph down, where the motion was made. Lucy Burton made a motion. I would just like to add the age of the septic tank and the necessity to have the 1,500, so right at the second sentence.
Okay.
Because I know the age was mentioned. I just want to have that in the motion.
Anything further to add or comment on?
Nope.
Motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the public session minutes of September 17th, 2015.
I wasn't there.
Oh, I'll second. Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. 2016 fee schedule.
I wanted the board to review it. I have no changes requested, but this does kind of go with number 5 too on the Oktoberfest temporary food permits. What I ran into on a couple of the Oktoberfest temp food permits is that they were single food vendors. So one vendor was just selling coffee, and one vendor was just selling cookies, and we're hitting them for $50 a day, and then recreation is hitting them actually for $150, but they lowered their fee to $75, so it's still $125 for these single vendor or single food vendors, and I just wondered if the board wanted to consider anything. And
Are
I
you
did.
going to have to do any inspections or anything?
Yeah, we do inspections. We do go and inspect each one for.
How long does it take you to inspect like a coffee truck?
Yeah, I don't even think it's a truck at this. I think it's just merely
Stand.
where they come and set up a table and a tent and do it from there.
I think that was something that I recall hearing at a meeting for a farmer's market in Mashpee where there was vendors that just came for one time only. They had like one harvest of something, and they had to pay this large fee for that one day, and then
Yeah.
the health, so it made it onerous for them to attend, and I think it's prohibitive.
Right.
So I'm amenable to seeing a reduction for like a temporary. Someone's
That's why I asked about the inspection.
Yeah.
Because on the whole fee schedule, what are these fees supposed to represent? If the fee's supposed to represent the amount of time you put into it,
Right.
then in a lot of cases, it doesn't.
Well, we went through several years ago. We
Yeah.
did an audit of the fees, a cost-benefit analysis, if you would, of how much time the agent spent
Right.
and what sort of fee was being charged, to see if it was equitable. And then overarchingly, like how many of those fees were collected per year in that subcategory of
Right.
fees. And I think we reduced some, escalated some, and came to a consensus that it was
'Cause, for example, here,
reasonable.
under septic system permits, the first top thing, reinspection after 2 is $25. I mean, give me a break. After 2?
After 2 previous
Yeah.
inspections.
After 2 previous inspections.
$25. I mean,
Well, we're
You're just eyeballing it, really, right?
Well, we're already hitting them for 100 for the perk and 100 for the
And-
septic permit, but that does include review and approval of the plan. Any questions, I do email the engineers, not for every plan, but for most of them. So I do have review time and consulting time with the engineer.
that's on the initial.
Well, I'm just saying overall, so, and then at the installation, we go and we do an inspection. And if they're either just not done, or if they run into an issue, then we'll go out for a second one, because it's typically beyond their, and then if we go out and
But now we're
they're,
talking third and up.
right. Well,
So
the
what-
third and up is what we're hitting them for.
And so what you're saying is oftentimes you can do it in 1, sometimes 2. If it
Right.
gets to be 3,
Yeah,
then,
it's usually something they're doing wrong.
right. And so I don't have a problem with charging $25 because they
Okay.
have to drive all, let's say it's all the way out on the end of Secaucet or something. It's out on Monomus Way. They're driving all the way out there, time out of the office, gas. They've been out there 2 times already.
The
I don't have a
aggravation
problem.
fee.
Okay.
Yeah, we don't do it that often, but
My
it's
next
usually
one-
egregious when
My
we get
next one was plan review.
charging.
Where am I? 0 to 20 lots, $50. You gotta be spending more than $50 worth of time. You gotta be.
Well, does
And
it
then,
go
of
through
course,
planning
It goes up to
first?
100 and 200. Over 50 lots is $200.
I mean, how often does that happen?
I have no clue.
Mashpee Commons now?
Not anymore.
Yeah.
There's no more land. But because those are older fees, and we just haven't touched them because we haven't had the
If it's
subdivisions.
sitting there and we're not really doing it anyway, what the hell?
I think it's probably, if someone's going to be building that much development in one fell swoop, that's going to be pretty rare in Mashpee now.
That's gonna be pretty rare.
It's going to be very rare. So I don't think,
Well, the other thing that an example for the Mashpee Farmers Market is that we're charging one fee for the event
Right.
and not charging it per vendor. And that might be something we should look at for doing the Oktoberfest, where it's essentially a fundraiser anyways for the commerce or for the town, whether,
do you do the same thing for like Food Truck Fridays?
I think we licensed each truck.
yeah, we licensed,
Not per day.
licensed each truck, and then, they had paid the one-time 100 fee, and there were actually a couple other newer vendors that came that did the July 4th, and they were gonna do Food Truck Fridays, and we charged them the one-time $100 fee, rather than charging them 50 each time they came to Food Truck Fridays. So we definitely worked with them on that.
Yeah, and that's not gonna scare anybody away.
Right.
Unless they're just selling coffee, because,
Well, and like somebody who does just popcorn sometimes, same thing, $50,
The-
that's steep.
The other thing that I did think of, though, is in looking at the 2 companies, the cookies and the coffee, they're essentially new companies, and you can look at basically, it's their cost for advertising, basically showing and getting public viewing at these events. So
What if it's for-
that was my only justification that I could come up with on the other side of the fence of being a business owner. Why would I want to pay this? Because they're getting good exposure to the town, and if they're getting charged 75 with recreation and 50 from us, is 125 out of the question to get that exposure? And my answer is no, probably not.
what if they're a local business like the coffee company next door that's already been inspected and then they're selling coffee? Is there some kind of like
There's
Local
still an
discount?
inspection, there's still an inspection because they're away from their facility.
Yeah.
And that's why we do typically hit them for an additional fee, because we're doing inspections when they're away from their licensed facility.
And what if it's like they come every year for years and they're a local business, so you've inspected their facility, the first time you went out there, the third time you went out there, the 10th time you went out there, everything was good. Is there some kind of
Nope.
no, it's all across the board?
Nope, it's across the board, and we would do it each time. They can always go and get a catering permit. The catering, we would inspect them for catering if they're going to do more events away from their facility and where they're going to be set up to do that. Then we'd offer them a catering license and pay $100 for the year, and they can do as many events in town as they like.
Gosh, that sounds like a good deal.
Right.
Only a couple of other items caught my eye.
I just had two more
Sorry.
questions
Oh,
on
I'm
that.
sorry.
If it's something like the Oktoberfest, where most of it is charity, are these vendors paying a portion of their proceeds back to the, how is it?
Not to my knowledge, no.
So they're in it for making money, period?
They're in it for making money.
Okay.
Yeah.
And so presumably, if you're in it for making money, we waive the fee if it's,
Nonprofit.
if it's a nonprofit or something like that. But if you're in the business of making food and selling food and you're doing these sorts of events, you've probably figured out that whether you're selling cookies or coffee or whatever, that you're going to make enough to cover the fees.
Right,
Otherwise, you don't do them, right?
right.
Plus, like you say, you're getting the advertising.
Marketing, yeah.
Yeah. And then the other question was, if a restaurant or a food establishment has a license and they do something up at one of these events,
Yep,
they still get inspected?
absolutely.
But it's $100 if they did 20 events or one. It's still one $100. Catering
If they
license.
got a catering, then they have the right to go and use that for each of the events.
Okay.
And we would still inspect them at the events.
Okay, so it's the catering license. I
Yeah.
guess I was forgetting about that part.
If that would cover it.
Yeah, okay.
On page 2, 2 items caught my eye. The third item from the top, I didn't know we had any door-to-door food peddlers.
Actually, that came into play when we had the meat Horizons meat.
Reasons.
Horizons what?
Horizons Meat, and they had little pickup trucks with freezer, everything came frozen, and they had freezers in the back of their trucks, and they sold high-quality meats door to door.
I was totally unaware of that.
And I did kind of chase them down, and actually one of the drivers ended up living in Mashpee for a short while. But, and they did not have a state hawkers and peddlers license. And we make everybody from the mobile food, from the people who do the beaches, the hot dog carts, the ice cream trucks.
Ice cream man.
Even the ice cream's under higher scrutiny now because of the Corys and Sori checks that they have to go through at the police department level. So, absolutely, there are still those folks around.
The only other thing was 3 items from the bottom. Underground storage tank registration, $1. Why bother?
Doesn't that keep them on the list?
That's the cost of the brass tag that they get that gets attached to the tank.
And that way,
And that's-
rather it be than being a high cost that people won't register,
Right.
it's a low cost so that you can keep track of them.
Well,
And-
but
It-
you only
it's-
got to register at one time.
It's more for tracking, yeah. And we don't see in those.
Do you need us to approve this schedule?
Yes, please, for
Motion, please.
2016.
I make a motion to approve the 2016 Town of Mashpee Board of Health fee schedule.
Second.
Those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye, unanimous. I didn't see a rodent regulation.
That's because I have it right here. Hot off the presses, as they say.
I have one.
This started,
How'd you get one?
Magic. Also
He
known
likes
as,
you better.
also known as Mr. Harrington.
this started actually a long time ago, but was further pushed by the new building commissioner. And he wanted to do an application, a building permit application for demolition. And many towns, and actually within the Board of Health guidelines, it does say that there should be some kind of rodent mitigation prior to demolishing a building. And so I went online, pulled a few up, and looked and came up with the one you have before you. And in talking with Don Borowski, who was the exterminator that we hired to take care of Lakeside, and he actually teaches exterminators, so he's pretty highly regarded. So I took his advice and put it down as a 30-day prior to even issuing the demo permit that a contract and the baiting had to start. And with my own experience too, the bait's usually out there for a couple of weeks and the rats won't touch it until that third week. And then they get comfortable enough or the smell goes away. I don't know what it is, but it's that second to third week that the baits are really hit on and taken in by the rat population. So that's why I thought the 30 days prior to was important. And then you have to maintain it through the project.
And is there ever a case where the 30-day window would have to be less based on an emergency or any kind of situation where if somebody came in for a demolition permit and you say, okay, well, this starts the clock, you've got 30 days, you've got to do this for 30 days, that they would say, no, we have to do it next week?
I suppose we have to put, I did see one that had a provision like that.
Mm-hmm.
I suppose if we have a hurricane and a building is half down and it's considered unsafe, yeah, I think that is worthy of, knocking it the rest of the way down so it's not a hazard that way. So,
And this only applies to demolition?
Yeah,
on this one, yeah, that was the thrust of
I'm
this.
looking at 4.5, and I'm saying, we're talking about a demolition project. What if there's no evidence of rodents? And you're going to tear one of these houses built in 1830, you're going to tear it down, but there's no evidence of rodents. According to this, you need a contract. The contractor has to maintain control measures, etc. But it's a project. I just thought this isn't Boston. Not every house has rodents.
So is there a problem with rodents in Mashpee, Glenn?
There are many neighborhoods that have rats right now, and it is definitely an issue, and we're finding more and more around those properties with chickens. And unfortunately, that if the feed isn't cared for and the manure isn't properly disposed of, then they end up having issues.
But the point is, are we talking about tearing the building down?
Right. This is for demolition.
Oh, demolition only?
Only at this point, yep. The nuisance, the Massachusetts is a little different because we have the nuisance laws under 111, 122. And we can cover
rodents?
It absolutely does, because it's potential for spread of disease, which can be covered under just about any of the pests are covered under that. So this is specific to demolition.
Just as a quick insert anecdotal, in looking at the annual reports from the department I work for, in like the 1930s, there was a massive rat problem on Cape Cod, and so the department I work for at that time distributed rat poison, and the way that they thought best at that time, because it was largely agricultural here, was to give it to school children to bring home. And then the school children were to bring back the dead rat counts back to the school, and that was how it was
Count?
tallied. Count.
Oh.
Yeah, so they brought home the rat poison and then brought back the rat mortality rate, and that was considered at that time reasonable.
Acceptable practice.
Yeah, so just as an aside, I always thought that was interesting.
Well, to answer your question, Bert, we can put in an inspection by us, because I don't know how else to have, it's got to be a third-party inspection prior to, so to make a call. But again, that's more time for us to go out and look at, which is fine, because we have enough experience with it now that I think we do a good job with it.
I'm okay with having
Where a
this.
couple years ago, I would say, no, probably we wouldn't.
How
but
often do we have a demo? It's pretty infrequently, so I mean, I'm totally okay with this. I know we're not Boston,
A
but,
couple a month,
yeah, but it's not like it
Really?
happens,
absolutely,
you know.
Couple a month.
yeah.
And do we have
Where, one particular part of town? Or all over
New
town?
Seabury mainly,
Should there be a fee? Is there a fee? There is a fee, right?
well, through the building
300?
department, there
Yeah.
will be, yeah.
Do we have an idea of what the cost associated with someone hiring an extermination company to,
Two to
Debating and-
$300.
and how much is the demo permit?
That I don't know.
That's gonna be
I'm
expensive.
not sure.
But I mean, in the big picture, when you're demolishing a building, it's thousands, and you're talking about a couple $100 more.
Right.
Yeah, I mean, the cost of the disposal of the wood and the C&D is probably massive compared to hiring a rodent control company.
And that's why I set the penalty basically at 300.
If everybody's happy with this as is, we could deal with it, or you wanna take a week to look at it?
Well, the only thing that jumps out at me is on 4.5. It says 30 days prior to the issuance of a demolition project. I think that should be a demolition permit, correct?
Yep.
Right.
But otherwise, I haven't scrutinized it.
Permit.
Do you want a little time to look at it, Lucy?
Yeah, can we just put it on for next time?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just got it. You can put it on for next time.
I would like that.
Fine.
But I'll look at putting on an emergency clause
Okay,
and also a prior inspection by us.
okay.
That way we'll go and do a sweep, and if we see any evidence, then we'll call them out on it.
And if there's no evidence, will you waive the requirement?
Yeah, we'll have to.
I think that sounds reasonable,
That's reasonable.
especially
Common
because you guys
sense.
know what you're looking for.
And where?
Yeah, it's common sense.
Okay, then we're just going to defer action on the road and regulation until next we meet. Oktoberfest temporary food permits.
I think we covered that. For my purposes, we did.
Did we come to a decision? I'm not sure if I'm aware of.
On
We
which?
discussed it, but was there some action that we needed to take? Just chit-chat, or?
Oh, well,
Oh, the single food
it
vendor
it
thing?
was regarding the single food
Oh.
vendor. That's why I did try to tie them both together.
Okay.
Okay.
And so did we decide we weren't going to make a change?
I don't actually know what we decided. Pardon my vagary.
Well, you didn't make any changes on the fee schedule
Fee
anyways.
schedule, because that doesn't change.
That was my ultimate goal, was to see if you want to actually change the fee schedule for single-service vendors. But I think it does come down that they are gaining and getting some out of
They're gonna-
the
they'll
appearance
cover-
at
they
these
get a lot
events.
of exposure.
And they need an inspection, and that's, okay.
And there is an inspection involved still.
Okay,
Okay.
got it.
And typically, the popcorn vendor is usually a nonprofit, so they're going to get the fee waived anyway.
Right. And I'm not, we don't always ask whether it's fundraiser or not. Typically, we're told right up front that it's a fundraiser. And so right there, we typically waive the fees because they're nonprofits that do it. But And I know in the past, the board has gone different ways on whether, if there is some percentage of the funds being given back to the fundraising event people or organization, then they'll be waived, but sometimes not. There were times where the town was in dire straits and the board voted not to give anybody a break and charged everybody across the board. So I think that,
It makes it really simple.
Well, and if there is a vendor who really is having a problem with this, then hopefully they are asking far enough in advance that they can come before us and we can make a decision.
right, we'll have them request the waive the fees.
So, that's fine.
Okay, so that takes care of item 5. 394 Katuitt Road. Is there anyone here for 394 Katuitt Road? No.
I'd sent you a couple of emails from Erica Woods, who was working with the homeowner.
Yeah, all I could think when I read all this stuff is Erica Woods is working hard, but this has taken forever to show any evidence of progress.
Well,
Or am I too...
the way I thought of it was Erica Woods is working very hard
I
with
agree.
this homeowner.
Oh, I
think
absolutely
the
agree.
homeowner is working hard and struggling against her own issues, and that I don't want us to overstep our bounds as far as cleaning and sanitizing versus dealing with hoarding. And it made me a little bit uncomfortable to think about us going further. She's making progress. They're doing work. We've been working with her for a long time now. And I think that as long as there is progress happening, I think that's a step in the right direction. But, you know, whether somebody's sanitizing the house well enough, you know, how many other houses could you walk into and say, there may not be a hoarding issue, but maybe they're not sanitizing enough? Where's the line for us there?
Well, you know, Ronnie says the occupants are not doing enough to help the owner. Bathrooms are not being cleaned even after the clutter is removed, and the animals are not taken care of. So as a result, we have a flea infestation.
And it goes and is left up to the owner to take care of the animals. And there's,
Right.
Does she need a kennel license? We were going to come to that after Ronnie went.
yeah,
Based on the amount
we'll
of
give
dogs.
Erica her time to do before we do that, because it's just going to throw in a whole nother level of grief if we start pulling family pets out of there.
Well, and weren't we told that one of them was a service dog, so therefore it doesn't
Oh, that's
count
exempt,
towards
right.
the number, right?
Well, that doesn't alter the fact that if you got fleas, you got fleas.
Well, and
Service
fleas
dog
in the
or
sum-
not.
Fleas in the summertime are common. I don't know how bad it was, and there's different levels, I get that. But, you know, the cold weather is setting in, I think the fleas will become less of a problem.
Well, I did recommend Ronnie doing another inspection in October, so I think we should at least have her do that.
I think keeping it on our radar is reasonable. I think, you know, it's progress, not perfection. I think, you know, back in the olden days, they used to teach you how to clean a house in school, like home economics, and that might be part of the process. Because if you've normalized deviance by like having a house that's not clean, then you might start to think that that's normal. And so to like raise the bar at a certain point, like this is actually what clean means, and sort of re-educating someone on that, and that might be something that Erica could work with. I don't know if you all saw that news article I saw in the news about the 96-year-old lady up in Medford or Medway, and she had been living on her couch for years, not able to get up. and they went in and they destroyed the house as a biohazard. This was like last week.
Oh.
And, I feel like we're making a commitment to a citizen of this town that it doesn't get to a place where we have to, demolish, like that she can't live in an untenable situation. We're doing our best, the county's doing their best, and it's like little by little, but I'm okay with that as long as the outcome is positive, and we keep it on our radar so she knows it's on our radar. And
they are trying to get her into the Buried in Treasures training, and if that happens, then I think, there's some magic happens there.
And I listen to all this, and I sit here and I say, okay, do we have a target? Is it a year, 2 years, 3 years?
Well, it's Barnstable County Health, I think, really, that's leading this, and we're just keeping it on our agenda, and Ronnie's visiting once a month. But how long does she spend there? An hour?
This can go on forever.
Well, we've never really...
We have an end date.
Right, but Bert, we've spent ridiculous amounts of time on citizens in this town, spent thousands of dollars of our time, the court's time, town council's time, trying to fix something that was just someone being stubborn. And I would prefer to help someone that is willing to help themselves and is really making a difference in their lives. It's positive and is actively participating in the positive outcome. We spend all kinds of time working with people who don't want to have any part of our help. And she does, and I think that that's applaudable.
I still think that having a target or an end date helps the process.
Well, that's Erica's on that.
Well, I think the agreement is part of that, and maybe that's something we should get with Erica again.
I believe it helps the whole scenario. I don't mean to interfere with it.
I also think it's a learning curve, like that there's something else happening outside of this meeting and outside of that house.
Even outside of Erica's visits.
Well, there's something else happening that's going to be beneficial to other hoarders. Like, in a way, this is like this sounds so, but like almost like an experiment station. Like Erica's working with this person to get it handled, and that she can take that knowledge and help other health agents and help the hoarding network, across the county.
And all that's good.
It is, I think.
But I really believe that having a target date is helpful.
I think, wasn't there a contract?
Yeah. The board's whole MO is that we've not thrown the book at anybody who's shown progress. And I think that's what I got to go back on.
That is our MO. We of all the people who go to various town committees and what have you asking for things, I think we treat people better than any other agency in this town.
We're pretty respectful.
We really are. And I don't want to screw that up. That's fine.
So I feel that as long as she's got the contract with the county, she's making progress and going forward, I don't feel that it's up to us to say, if you don't finish or get to this stage by this date, then what? We're going to condemn the house? What good is that going to do?
Well, no.
And she's only one out of how many?
Well,
1 in 10? What's the statistic again, Glenn?
4%.
4%. What's
5 to 6.
5 to 6.
What's 5? Pardon my math. What's 6% of 14,000 people?
I
64.
I can't believe that.
Huh?
More than one.
More than one, yeah.
Yeah. So, I think we've got a larger issue, and we're learning about it. I didn't know anything about it. I know a little bit, but I'm learning a lot.
I've
We're
been
all learning
sitting
a
on
lot.
this board for, 4 or 5 years, and it's the first time we've had hoarding as an issue. Yeah, it is that long.
No, it's longer, Bert. It's like
Whatever.
double that.
My point is that
Not for me, but
all of a sudden, we have added hoarding to our biweekly agenda.
Well, how many people in Mashpee? Did you say 64?
Oh,
I
it's
don't
more than
believe
that.
have
Yeah.
numbers.
I know a dozen off the top of my head.
Yeah, so it's something we're going to have to continue to deal with. The
Right.
department's going to have to deal with it, and we're learning and participating and being an active participator.
We-
Maybe
we-
it's a liberal
We
bias,
have 3
but
active cases right now.
and that's the ones we know about.
71 Lakeside, which was easily could have ended up on the news with the deplorable conditions that was in, and that has since been cleaned out, which is a good thing.
Said that.
We're dealing with P103 and Deer Crossing. We have still in the process of doing that, and then we have this one, which is ongoing and a positive. And I'm going to sit down and seriously look at, because look at the whole overall hoarding, where the town is going to end up paying to clean P103 versus the consulting and essentially the psychiatry that goes on to help the patient, because hoarding is a sickness, it's a disease, it is a observable and documented disease. So, and this was one thing that Jesse Vetter, who's one of the leading guys in the whole field, is saying that no one's ever really done that, and I wish he did, because he's got the most experience, but he hasn't. As far as he goes in and actually helps people do the cleaning. He sits down with them and picks up each piece of paper and figures out what to do with it. And he's done that, and his statistic is that he's only had 8 evictions out of 450 cases. That's the success rate that he has seen, because he knows the psychology and knows how to deal with the people who hoard. And we need to duplicate him, because there just aren't enough psychologists out there that has his craft. And we're going to need that. But the whole comparison between, and what he doesn't know is the municipal side. He doesn't know when a municipality has to step in and do a cleanup, how much is it worth? If we do $30,000, $40,000, $50,000 worth of a cleanup, how much is he actually spending in his time in actual cost versus the cleanup cost? And that's the comparison, and that hasn't been done yet. And it really needs to be done. And between going to court, so we haven't even had to get to court. I've dealt with counsel on one of our cases, but I've never actually had to take it all the way to court. And when you're into an eviction or a condemnation where you have to go to court, then there's another whole layer of cost with that. And so that's the comparison that really needs to be looked at. And I just thought, because hoarding is new enough as a focus item that we have to deal with now, that hasn't been done yet.
Well, and to me, it's so much more than just the clean out. You can clean it out, and they're going to just start all over again. The psychology is so important. The things that Erica is doing and others.
Treatment. There's got to be treatment involved.
Absolutely.
I think it's going to make a big difference. One of the things that I saw in one of the trainings that I did for the explosive and high reactive chemical training that I did was people that hoard chemicals. And we were studying this one situation where it was a home alchemist, and he had over 4,000 containers of ether and all. I mean, it's just ridiculous stuff. And you know, when I spoke to the Barnstable County, the hoarders group, that was something that they commonly saw was people that hoarded chemicals because they thought that there was a value attached to that chemical, whether it's mercury or ether or whatever, and so by holding on to it, it has a value. I think that there is, if you did a cost-benefit analysis of the process we're going through, I think eventually we're going to come out on the winning end. But it's hard to see in the beginning because it feels like we're allocating, time on our agenda, time for the health department. But I think in the long run, it's going to be a benefit to the town of Mashpee for being so. I'm not sure what the right word is. Proactive.
Patient and proactive.
Patient is another word. Yeah. And respectful, and allowing the process to unfold in a manner that allows for the healing and this person to stay in their home. That's kind of priceless.
That's exactly it.
And I think forcing the issue is going to not make it better. So I'm happy to keep it on the radar. Have Ronnie continue to do her end of inspection and animal surveillance, and we'll keep on working with Barnstable County Health and Erica. I think it's going to be fascinating to find out how this all sort of unfolds and how we can have a part in it. That's
you can hear my frustration in my comments that I make just with the side distractions at the property.
Yeah, I mean, there's
that's really, because I know there would be success and it would be a heck of a lot faster.
There's a lot
if
of
there
baggage.
If there weren't, exactly, if there weren't the distractions there.
Yeah, a lot of baggage.
So that was why my comments were made.
But, while we've been talking, I said to myself, I wonder if the powers that be, whoever they may be, know what we're dealing with.
What powers that be? Like the town manager?
All right, the town manager, for example.
He knows.
He knows?
Absolutely, he knows.
Do you have department head meetings? That's the kind of thing.
Well, I've
Imagine that-
briefed him on each of these situations because I've briefed and been briefed by council on each of these situations.
If the town manager is content with what we're doing, or why we're doing it, or how we're doing it, it's okay with me. If he were totally unaware, I'd be a little uncomfortable. So I'm glad to hear that he's not unaware.
Well, I think I know what the town manager would say is that he would leave it to the experts at hand, to you guys. So that's, I think, exactly what he would
The
say.
nature of our current town manager.
Yes.
Okay, great.
So we'll just keep it on the
And I'll
the
have
docket.
Ronnie do the next monthly inspection.
103 Deer Crossing.
Okay.
Speaking of hoarding,
Speaking of hoarding,
One for Lucy.
I had a question about this, Glenn. Is the storage on the
Another one?
person who's doing the cleaning?
She has one.
oh, you already got one? Okay.
I'm sorry?
Is the storage, there's a couple of places here where it talks about, it describes storage.
Yeah.
I'm like, is the town, is that part of this bid, is storage, or is
This-
that going to happen at the unit?
The storage, well, I don't know. I'm going to leave that up to the bidder as far as what they want to do. Anything in storage would be returned to the unit when it's done. So
And
it's not a long-term storage.
Oh, okay.
It's just merely cleaned, stored, held so that it doesn't stay in a dirty location.
Okay.
And then brought back to that. That was my hope in that part of it.
Gotcha, that was my only question about this.
Is this unique, this document, or,
It is totally unique.
Wow. Wow.
because, I'm sure that,
No other town has done this to my knowledge, other than a full demolition of a building.
well, no, I'm not talking about the specificity of it, but I'm sure the town of Mashpee sends out many invitations for bid.
Yes. And I got that from Catherine at DPW as
Okay.
a template.
All right, so.
But council did review it, and that was the latest round of comments.
So this may be specific to our 103 problem, but it's basically, it's a generic invitation for bid.
That's correct.
Okay.
It is a bid based on a service bid, a request for a service. So, and that was the template that I used. And,
And you're just going to update the dates at the end?
well, yeah, I have to update, the dates of when it's going to be advertised, because it has to be advertised in 2 locations. And so I'll update the bids once I know when those advertisings are going to be.
Okay.
And because of the cost, it does have to go through a bid process.
All right, in 10 words or less, what is this invitation asking a contractor to do?
In the
A lot.
in
Clean
the,
trophies.
in the scope of work, it's going to be cleaning. Well, basically everything on the first floor is going to go except for anything that has a hard surface to it. So if there's a lamp that is a hard surface, the books are going to be cleaned. I really didn't want to do books, but
We're going to clean the books? I mean, what if they're just trashy paperbacks?
Paperback novels.
I mean, it's not worth cleaning them. That's going to jack up the price. I'm seeing here removing the wallpaper.
Well,
We're
we've
not
already-
replacing it.
there isn't any wallpaper.
We've already seen or heard of bids that were way above what we anticipated.
Yeah, even this is going to be cut that down a little bit. But I had
What
to
order of
leave.
magnitude do you anticipate?
Probably around 40,000.
So there's a price to be paid for not working, not engaging.
Well,
But this is
but
making
but
sure
it
that
has an
all
end.
the,
It has an end. That's my point.
I know,
They
but
pay you
there's no
$40,000. The job is done. We're through.
But there's no treatment. What's to say, as soon as this is all done, the place is beautiful, sanitized, empty, that she doesn't start all over again?
Exactly.
Nothing.
That's not an end.
It's not an end at all.
That
Well-
could be the beginning.
It's maybe a new beginning, but there's an end.
I don't know if we have the right to force her into anything else beyond that, because this is merely done because there's a neighbor on either side of this, and this is being done as a so-called emergency, but it's a slow process, I'm finding out, just to get bids and also to get this bid process. But where I've never been involved with it doesn't help either. I just have never done a public bid in this process before.
Are there rodents? And is that addressed?
Yes, there's rodents. And yes, that asks for another 30-day of the exterior of the building.
Okay.
And the association is going to go in when this is done and take care of the attic. So there's going to be follow-up
Take
by
care
the
of the what?
association. By rodents in the building.
Yeah,
Take care of the attic.
Or the attic, okay. Is this a common attic, or is there
I've
firewalls in
never
between?
been in the attic, so I'm not sure if it's individual or if it's common.
I don't think by building code it can be common.
It was built a long time ago. It was built in 19...
Oh,
It was
In
early
80s.
80s.
No, before that. Late 60s.
Deer
Deer
Crossing?
crossing?
No?
No.
Hold on. I don't know if I have the septic here, but this is,
Well, we bought one in 1986 or 7 when it was being built.
Katuitt Bay was built
84 was when the soil tests were done.
Katuitt Bay was built.
So the septic was done in 85, and compliance was issued in 86, so it would have been 86.
Okay.
But it doesn't matter that building has documented issues.
As a result of,
We don't know that it was as a result of, but that the association was going to go into this unit, and that's what prompted this whole thing, is because they were going to get legal right to go into this unit because the owner was not allowing them in, and it was because of the pest issue.
is she living there still now?
No,
Okay. And so she won't live there during all of this either?
no, she is at another location.
Okay.
So that we could be hopeful that once it's cleaned up, it'll stay cleaned up.
Right, we're hoping that the other human service factions step in and will help her with that. But at this point, our
But she's
goal
living
is,
someplace else now.
yes,
There's no way, like, and this is beyond the scope of my knowledge, that because it's costing the town X amount of dollars, it's going to cost the town X amount of dollars, upwards of $40,000.
yeah,
And it's because of a mental illness, that there's no court-ordered psychiatric evaluation that could be, like, scaffolded onto this by some of the human service organizations
I
or
can
anything?
ask counsel, but I don't know the answer to that.
I mean, it seems to me that that would be reasonable. That because it's a mental illness, because it's costing the town X amount of dollars, because it's a emergency situation, because it's a public health hazard,
Yeah,
and that this person has created it, and there's no guarantee that without a psychiatric evaluation this wouldn't occur. Like there would be she would go back to this lifestyle choice, which again, we could be in a cycle with her.
yeah.
In 1978, you won't remember this, you're both too young, there was a federal move called deinstitutionalization.
I remember that my great-grandmother was a psychiatrist, and I
I
remember
was
her talking
chairman
about
of
this.
the deinstitutionalization committee of one of the counties in New Jersey where I was living at the time. And I look back many years later and I say, that was one of the stupidest things the government ever did, was to close every single mental institution in the country.
My granny said it was going to make everyone
So,
homeless.
it's like you go to court and the court says, oh, okay, well, put them in a hospital. So there's no place to send them anymore.
Well, there are hospitals.
Damn few. And they're expensive as hell.
That's why there's health insurance, and health insurance helps, obviously not with the co-pays and the deductibles, which can be really high, but, that's,
But we're dealing with a disease, and I agree that it's a disease, that doesn't have a cure.
Well, many diseases don't have
Treatment.
a cure, but they
There's
have
treatment.
treatment.
They have treatment.
yeah, I
Right.
mean, cancer, there's lots of things, you can't just say, oh, well, we're not going to deal with it because there's no cure. There's treatment, and there's all these other peripherals to that can, augment treatment, and sometimes there's a success rate and sometimes there's not, but, that's not a reason to give up,
Okay.
And there's health insurance, there's the
Well, you
affordable
can't
health
do-
care.
The cost of health care is out of sight because of things like this that
I
have
think
no
that's
end.
opening up a whole nother
Oh,
can of worms we
absolutely. I don't even want to do
necessarily
that.
wanna
I
get
want to
into.
deal with that. I really don't.
But I'm just wondering, if we're not going to be entering into a vicious cycle with this individual, if we clean it up, we spend $40,000 or more, and then in 5 years, 2 years, it's going to have the same problem, and we're going to have to,
Well,
engage in this.
maybe the landlord won't allow that tenant back.
No, she
This
owns
is
the
an
unit.
owner,
It's
this
a
is an
condo.
owner-occupied unit. And the family may be able to step in, and the family has stepped in, so that there would be an evaluation.
I mean, they haven't
but
stepped
it-
into the tune of paying for the cleanup. That's on the back of the taxpayers.
Right, well, no,
Well, no,
it's a lien.
that's going to be a lien.
Oh, okay.
Right, that's what I
Yeah,
would.
Oh,
there-
so when the
there's-
house, when it sells, it's going to
Yes, there's going, right, the town will have the right to be reimbursed when the property is sold.
And look,
Which could be, I don't know how old this
Could
individual
be
is.
forever, but that's okay.
Yeah.
we have had situations in the past where properties have been foreclosed on. What happens to that lien if that happened?
If what happened?
If the property was foreclosed on, if she wasn't able to continue to make the payments, what happens to the
The
lien?
lien still gets paid.
It does get paid?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, it does get paid.
The lien supersedes any mortgages or
They get paid
whatever.
first?
Yes.
Okay, good. So as much as the town is fronting the money,
Yeah.
it's not gonna,
It could be decades before we see any kind of reclamation of it.
Plus
Is that the word?
6% interest.
Oh,
That's good. Anyway, I didn't see anything in this. I was curious about the storage. That was the only part that
Okay.
who's responsible for the storage of personal items? And I think you answered my question, so.
and I would just wonder about maybe rethinking the whole cleaning of books thing.
I didn't want to include that, but that was a request
is
of
there a
the
lot of
owner,
books
so.
there?
Well, it was a request of the owner. She's the one that's gonna ultimately be responsible for this bill. So if she wants to
Right.
pay to
Sure.
have her books
And
cleaned,
that's why I included the mattresses. The mattresses get thrown out, but they have to get replaced, so that she has a place to sleep when she comes back. I did not replace the food. All of the food is going to get thrown away.
and, I mean, you're gonna
The-
replace the mattresses, but what about things like the bedding and all of that? All gone.
No, that gets washed. Everything except for the first floor. The second floor and the basement, the stuff I think was not in a condition where I think it can be cleaned. Everything on the first floor was just too far gone. The other thing too is the appliances. I put in the bid that the appliances they have to be working and operable. We're essentially, when we condemn a property, it's essentially a taking. It's a taking of private property. So when we turn this property back over to the owner, everything needs to be working, including the fire alarms, the smoke alarms, all of the appliances. So that's why I have that in there, and that's why the number may be big. If all the appliances work, we're not going to get charged for that, because they won't have to replace any of the appliances.
Someone's just gonna
But I
clean them
have to,
and-
right, I have to put that in there, because if we give it back to her and the appliances don't work, she's in violation of the housing code. So we can't turn a property over that's in violation of the housing code.
So is this cleaning, and I didn't see this anywhere, are the cleaning people responsible for finding out if the appliances work?
Yeah,
Okay.
yeah. That's how we have to do it, because we can't turn the property back over to her in violation.
Lucy,
Wait,
Mashpee Cares
wait,
Committee.
I have another question. What time frame? I know that there's blanks here. Once you go through the bid process and we identify who it is, how long do they have to start?
They're going to fill in their own time frame, and we choose whoever is the quickest time frame.
Quickest and less expensive.
And right.
A combination
Right.
of both.
We're looking at that combination.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Oh, Mashpee Cares.
I have no update. They had a meeting, like I said, at the
2 weeks
same night
ago.
as our last meeting,
Yep.
2 weeks ago. There is another one coming up, I want to say October 20th, perhaps, at the library. It's at 6 PM, so I'm hoping that maybe I can make it. But that's, I don't know.
Okay. Calliope Waste Management?
I asked for a topic of discussion to be put on the next agenda in the email, of which there was no discussion, and then I outlined what I was hoping to, what my goal was, specifically to you, but in general to the rest of the board. So I'm hoping to have some kind of discussion and some kind of consensus, so that it's not Calliope Egloff's opinion as an emissary of the Board of Health, but rather a Board of Health consensus, being that, I mean, everyone has a seat at the table at that, but it's what we do, is talk about composting, recycling, solid waste, hazardous waste. It's what we do, whether you're on the school committee or the finance committee, or you're a member at large and you don't know anything about the trashy situation. It's what we're good at, and we know, and that it falls within it parallels what we're to do here. So I thought it was reasonable, and I asked also on the Waste Management Committee that any other board or committee appointee also report back to their board or committee and get a consensus on the same mission that I emailed out to y'all. That's my Texas.
You're she's been in Texas.
So that,
I bet she bought a 10-gallon hat, too.
No, I bet she didn't.
I don't.
I win.
So that it wasn't just the Board of Health that was going back to report. It was the finance committee or the school committee or what have you. So that that there was a reason that those people were coming to the meeting and that it made sense within the context of the appointee or so. So.
Right, you said something that triggered my.
Did I trigger you,
To
Bert?
say, we're both dealing with the same subjects, but I hope it's not redundancy, that there's a different perspective, if you will.
I should hope so. There was not outrage, although there's a certain level of outrage, which is interesting because this is one committee board that I serve on. I served on the Affordable Housing Committee, which was pretty amenable. I was there for 8 years, so it's interesting to be on a semi-hostile committee. I've never participated. I've never spent my evenings away from my family
So
in a hostile environment. And I would say just like the level of discourse feels uncomfortable and very tense. And I'm okay with saying that publicly. There was some disappointment that someone from the Mashpee Recycling Committee wasn't on that committee. So there was that. Yeah. So I don't think that we don't have to be redundant. So we've talked about mandatory recycling. We've talked about composting. We've talked about we've talked about pay as you throw. We had Dave Quinn come in and Paul Tilton, and we've evaluated it. Technically, we have a lot more authority over solid waste than we tend to take on, because DPW takes it on, and that's what happens in this town. But we do have a voice there, and it's not just my voice, it's your voice and your voice and Glenn's 2 cents as well. So I thought it was important to have at least some kind of commonality when it comes to making a recommendation, which at our next meeting, there's going to be a recommendation made, voted on at the Waste Management Committee to give to the Board of Selectmen that should align with those 3 goals that I forwarded to you.
Despite the hostile environment.
Semi-hostile environment.
Okay. All right.
Well, I mean, that's the surface of things. You know, it's not my druthers. If I were to serve on a committee, I'd like to serve on, you know, something a little bit more friendly. But
Well, if it's a difference of opinion that's not interfering with the work of the committee, that's okay.
I think there's a lot of opinion. I don't know a lot of it's based on a clear understanding of the future of solid waste. I think a lot of it feels like historical or legacy baggage of the way trash has always been handled. So, like, you know, at the Upper Cape Hazardous Waste Collection in Mashpee, we collected, 24,000 pounds of hazardous waste. That used to go into the solid waste stream.
You're doing the Lower Cape this weekend.
Last weekend I did Barnstable. We collected 14,000 pounds of solid waste, several thousand pounds of which were flam liquids. You know, that's the kind of stuff that used to go into the trash. And so, like, if we held on to this belief system that just because we've always thrown it away, we should always be able to throw it away, that wouldn't make sense because we're evolving towards a more sustainable future. But anyway.
All right, let's move on to synthetic macaroni. Marijuana.
Somebody didn't have
We
dinner.
haven't had dinner yet. Synthetic marijuana. And Glenn sent us 30 pages. But what
apologize
we're
for
interested
that.
in starts on page 18.
18, 19, 20, and 21. Yeah, I just printed the 4 pages that
I
were.
printed the whole damn thing.
I think it's a terrific step in the right direction, and it's got the police departments behind it, police chiefs, and I don't know why we wouldn't.
Why wouldn't we adopt Barnstables instead of Carvers, since Barnstable passed it for a regional?
Because Barnstables has the police department involvement where it says they can inspect for transport and they can inspect for possession.
And Mashpee doesn't want to do that?
Well, no, the Board of Health doesn't have the right to do personal searches.
But we couldn't have the police department take that authority?
From the way that Chief McDonald said that the Board of Health regulation would leave that out until the town adopts the bylaw.
Oh, okay.
So we can leave the Barnstable bylaw to be adopted by the town at the Maytown meeting, but we would do the Carver where it's watered down on those 2 items, that doesn't include possession and the transportation, because essentially we can't do those personal searches. But we can certainly stop the retailers from selling the items.
It's very interesting that there's people on probation that would want this because it doesn't show up on drug tests.
Right?
Really?
Yeah, that's one of the selling points, as it were, if you were in marketing.
Yeah, I learned that at the meeting, and I thought that was kind of wild that they actually have some alternative to go to where they won't get in trouble.
I read synthetic marijuana and synthetic marijuana analog. And I said to myself, what in the hell is the difference? But I didn't get into the weeds with it.
It's a huge difference.
Oh, I'm sure there must be.
It's a huge difference, and the reason why it's written that way is that
It's actually synthetic. Okay, go ahead.
I get a little bit troubled with the fact of where it's made, and if Chinese manufacturers will put hazardous waste in, like, baby formula and dog food, what are they going to put in synthetic marijuana if it's not regulated?
right,
you know?
it's definitely not regulated.
You know, so
But the difference as far as the definition and the use of the word analog is that, and Chief McDonald explained it this way, is that they want to stop the evolution of the drug, which means that, and in my description that I got from him basically is that if you make a regulation like our e-cigarette regulation where it says that those are nicotine delivery devices, so we've set it down for one substance, which is nicotine. And so if we make this regulation specifically for the cannabinoids or cannabinoid substances that are used, that are sprayed on the herbal blends or whatever it is, then it's just going to be limited to that. And then Chief McDonald said, well, the backyard chemists are just going to go and they're going to change the compound, so it's a different compound that doesn't meet our regulation. And so it's written, so using this word analog or an imitation of these substances, then it covers anything that is made that has a similar effect.
The next generation.
These next generation of the backyard chemists are just going to tweak the compound enough where it's not considered this type of compound, but it has the same effect.
It
and
mutates
it still
that
has
quickly.
the same dangerous and toxicity which is a public health hazard.
So can someone make this in Mashpee?
I have no idea because I don't know what's in it. They have not really said what's in it.
And who would regulate that backyard chemist?
There isn't any regulation.
Yeah.
That's the problem is that, and they say that there's a tough time even tracking it coming in because it's coming in from the Pacific Rim countries. It's not made here in the U.S. They have not found anyone who makes it here in the U.S. Not
It's
like
just a
they
matter
have.
of time, though.
I'm sure.
Well, like you say, who's to say what's in this stuff?
Yeah.
I mean, there's no boundaries when it comes to our most vulnerable populations of like children and animals when it comes to stuff that where it's not as regulated or scrutinized.
Right.
Pages 18 through, I don't know exactly where, because there's a whole bunch of action taken by various committees and so on. So are we three being asked to amend the code of the town of Mashpee? Or what's our...
You're being asked to adopt a regulation, I'm going to say similar to the town of Carver, to that format.
The town of Carver, not
Yes.
Barnstable.
Because the Barnstable bylaw will ultimately have to go on the May town meeting for the town of Mashpee, for the town to vote on.
But in the interim,
And this is an interim deal that the Board of Health is being asked to do. And each of the regional boards of health are being asked to do this.
Okay, and are we being asked to approve a regulation that we don't actually have a written format complete yet because there is a need and it needs to be done quickly, or can we wait and
This is the first
review
night
it?
that you've seen it.
so would it show up on our next meeting?
Well, the other thing too, and my last comment that I made on this is every time we make a regulation, we give the retailers the chance to come and comment too.
So hopefully, like we talked about it and did a public hearing on 10:15.
Does that give
Yeah.
enough time for notice?
If you think that this format is close enough for me to do a draft
We're
to
only
submit
dealing
out.
with pages 18, 19, and a piece of 20.
21. 18 to 21.
No,
This
21's a
is
summary.
this is the format here. I'm sorry. This is the town of Carver's. Here, there's one more. I don't have three. I'm sorry.
That's okay.
I will send it out to you. That's another reason why I just wanted to give you another couple of weeks to look
Yeah,
at
see,
it. I will send it to
The third page
you.
is the signature page.
Mine is.
Can you keep that? To email.
I'll send it to you.
Okay, you're going to send
Yep.
one to each of us?
Yep.
All right, yeah, if we can do a public hearing, and if you have time to make this a Mashpee
Yeah.
regulation,
Yeah.
all of that,
Yeah, it seems on its face to be very simple.
and it's important.
Oh, and it's important, absolutely.
And I'll see where the other towns are with this too. So that we do all of this at a similar relative timing.
I was hoping to, at the next meeting, put something on the agenda that I learned about at the Hazardous Waste Managers Association conference that I went to, which was about e-cigarettes and vaping and hazardous waste. And I thought it would be great to talk about it because there's a couple of places in Mashpee where you can buy or you can vape or buy e-cigarettes. And the P-listed hazardous waste that's associated with that, and just to kind of raise the knowledge base here of the board.
Can you email me that? so
Yeah,
I
it was a
can-
fascinating discussion and workshop, and I learned a lot about how much hazardous waste is contained in the manufacture and disposal of e-cigarettes themselves, and also the manufacture of e-cigarettes, which it's a backyard chemistry that, you know, anyone could do it in their basement sort of thing. So I thought it'd be great to just give a quick, you know, sort of overview of it. And then from a VSQG standpoint, Glenn, you know, following up on those
Yep.
vape shops, because they have P-listed hazardous waste, which is very hazardous. It's not quite the same as like other stuff, you know.
Is that the cartridges? Is that what they are?
Yeah, the containers, the liquid, if they, you know, if like, say, you know, you have a flavor that doesn't like resonate with your selling population, so you decide to like get rid of it, but nicotine is a P-listed hazardous waste, and which, you know, it's acutely toxic, and so you can't just throw it in the trash, you can't just pour it out on the ground, and that's fallen under the radar of like the businesses that I work with, so I thought it'd be great for at least us
Yeah.
to
If you
know
could
more
just
about
send
it.
the explanation so Fran can get it on there.
Absolutely.
Cool.
Yep.
Besides the shooting in the Oregon College today, we had an Air Force plane crash in Afghanistan tonight.
God bless them.
12 dead.
Anything else?
That takes care of our agenda. Anything to add for discussion?
I'll make a
Motion?
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Meeting adjourned at 8:15. Hour and 11 minutes. Not too bad.